Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking about the Doctor Who episode Nightmare in Silver. Now this one is written by Neil Gaiman, and boy, I really hope I'm saying that right. Who, of course, wrote the episode The Doctor's Wife, which, from what I've seen, seems to have been a big favorite with everyone, and rightly so. He's also best known for writing the extremely popular and highly influential comic book series The Sandman, and also being a guy that back in the day Tori Amos used to like to hang out with. You know, back when people still talked about Tori Amos. Anyway, now Neil Gaiman is a really, really good writer. He can just really bring some phenomenal stuff to the page. So my expectations for this episode going in were really high, and overall, I think that this is a pretty decent episode. But from a guy of Neil's caliber, I was really hoping for something on the level of The Doctor's Wife, and I hate to say it, but we didn't quite get that. What we got was a reasonably good episode that does the job of reinterpreting the Cybermen to make them a much more dynamic threat. You know, upgrading them a little bit, to use the episode's parlance. But there's just some elements of this episode that just really don't quite work for me. Now, one thing that I did like was how things were at the beginning with, the nutty professor or whatever. I didn't even bother to write the guy's name down because I knew he wasn't going to be that important of a character. But, the guy who's there to sort of act kind of like Willy Wonka. And that's how it really did, how it was that I was thinking of this episode for a little while was, what if the Cybermen attacked Willy Wonka's chocolate factory? And by that I mean probably like the version from the 70s. I have not seen the Johnny Depp version, so I can't speak to that one. Now, I do like that. Let me get this out straight. I do like a way they really do update the Cybermen here. The Cybermen have been the Cybermats have been replaced by the Cybermites, which are, frankly, given the way that nanotechnology is going these days, a very reasonable extrapolation. We've also seen, little bits and pieces, nods and touches to the various previous iterations of the Cybermen. And we get to see the Cybermen just really being a lot more intelligent. They're using their the fact that they're robotic life forms essentially to, well, actually no, what am I saying? They're not robotic life forms. They're cyborgs, really. Which, if you stop and think about it, means that some of the things that they did in this episode are kind of confusing, like taking off their head and letting their hands run around. I mean, that seems something that would actually be more reasonable for a machine rather than a cyborg, now that I think about it. But then again, we aren't really made completely aware of just how much organic stuff there is inside the Cybermen. And well, if the Cybermen really have upgraded themselves to where they can do that and still have their biological parts still work, then that just adds another level of uh-oh to this upgrade of the Cybermen. I also liked that they kind of gave nods to the Cybermen's previous weakness, like cleaning products and gold. And if you've seen the Cybermen episode Earthshock, you probably will never forget Cybermen and their weakness for gold and how that was done there. But we'll talk a little bit more about things from that episode later on. Now, I was reading an interview with Neil Gaiman before this episode aired, and he said that he kind of figured that his reinterpretation, his update of the Cybermen, would be controversial among fans, and he even likened it to the debate between slow zombies versus fast zombies. Okay, I haven't seen too many. Actually, I can't really think of any of the fast zombie movies that I've seen, but I'm not really a zombie movie person, despite the fact that I review The Walking Dead. So I got no real dog in that fight. Now, we do briefly see a Cyberman being ridiculously fast, and then no other Cyberman for the rest of the episode does that whatsoever, even when it would probably be to their advantage, which also makes no sense whatsoever. That's some lychee juice I'm drinking there. Tastes a lot like apple. Anyway, so I do like I said, I do like the streamlined design of the Cybermen. You know, upgrade in progress. It certainly beats delete as a catchphrase from what we got during David Tennant's run. But you can't really talk about this without talking about the elephant in the room, which is just how much the Cybermen have now borrowed from the Borg. I mean, we see Doctor What's His Face looking very Locutus of Borg-like, and I'm gonna have to think that that was probably just a nod to Star Trek, because really, Doctor Who knows it's not gonna be fooling anybody with that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Science fiction and just in fiction in general have always been drawing influences from each other and incorporating them and reinterpreting them in their own stories in ways that for them make sense. And really, there's nothing wrong with that. I remember seeing an interview one time with Axl Rose from Guns N' Roses, and somebody asked him, very standard question, like, what are your musical influences? And Axl said, everything is an influence. And it's just as true in music as it is here in writing for television. So I know some people have really got their shorts in a knot over that. Frankly, I think that's getting angry over the way just writing in fiction works, which is really kind of ridiculous. Now, getting back to the story a little bit more, though. I like the way that the Cyberman was initially presented, that chess-playing robot. It was a nice setup to what we would get later on when the Doctor had to do the chess game. This is, of course, obviously that, and what was going on with Porridge there was a nod to a famous chess-playing quote-unquote computer or I should say robot, from the 19th century called the Turk. And it was really presented as this robot, essentially, or this automaton or mechanism or whatever you want to call it, that could play chess, and supposedly it beat some of the best chess players in Europe. Reportedly, even Napoleon lost a match to the Turk. Now, over the years, people have investigated, and they've basically either come to proven or all but proven that basically it was what we got to see in this episode. It was just sort of a puppet manipulated by a person hidden in a little secret chamber. Now, of course, the person pulling the strings this time around was Porridge, played by the one and only Warwick Davis, who, excuse me, who us geeky folk would know as the title character from Willow, the Leprechaun from the Leprechaun movies, and, oh yeah, the guy who was actually inside R2-D2. I mean, with David Tennant having been on Star Wars: The Clone Wars recently, and then this has really been a very good couple of months for fans who have both Star Wars and Doctor Who. So yeah, and I mean, really, just having somebody like that on the show. Oh man, we've been getting so many great British actors on the show this season, and man, if they can somehow get Maggie Smith on Doctor Who, I think they will probably make my brain explode out the back of my head. But anyway, let's kind of get into a little bit more about what's going on in this episode. And let's talk about what seems to be, from my perspective, the big sticking point that I and a lot of other fans seem to have with this episode. And this is the two kids, Angie and Artie. Okay, there's a lot that can be said here. I'm going to try and keep it short, because, I don't want to get myself worked up and angry. Frankly, having these two kids in this episode is just complete bull, alright? Angie is just an enormous brat seriously, she dethrones Adric as the most annoying teenager to ever be on Doctor Who. And I say that as somebody who has actually admittedly even defended Adric at times. But, I will acknowledge that he could be a real ass. Seriously, but Angie tops even him. And considering that she did it in only one episode while Adric was a full-fledged companion, that's a hell of an accomplishment. And hell, whatever you want to say about Adric, at least he went out helping to take down the Cybermen and stop them from destroying the Earth. Now, Artie, he's there to be the innocent, precocious, nice kid who you don't want anything bad to happen to. I mean, really, the only really redeeming thing that Angie does in this episode is make a reference to Ghostbusters when she says, when someone says, "Do you want to be queen?" you say yes. Okay, kid, I'll give you points for liking one of the greatest comedy films of the entire 1980s, but you're still annoying as all hell. And, yeah, that's really all that I have to say about that. One thing that I got an enormous kick out of in this episode is the Doctor referring to Clara as the impossible girl. Now, if you've been watching my Doctor Who episodes reviews, I actually called her that, literally called her that a couple of reviews ago, the impossible girl. When I heard that, I was just like, yeah. So, I mean, complete coincidence, but still, awesome. I loved that. And of course, you can't really put into words just how awesome it was to physically actually get to see the faces of all previous 11 Doctors. I mean, we've only really ever had that guest spot by Peter Davison. But here, I mean, we've seen nods and references to all the previous Doctors, but here, actually seeing them, it really just crystallizes that this is that character. This is that person who's been running around the pop culture landscape ever since the Kennedy days. Well, actually, I believe Doctor Who first aired the day after Kennedy was assassinated. So, yeah, anyway. So, again, I just can't, as somebody who's been a Doctor Who fan for more than half their life, since I was like 15 years old, watching old Tom Baker episodes on my local PBS station. That's just, ooh, such a great nod to the fans, and something that is so fitting, seeing as how the 50th anniversary is coming up, and yeah, just pure gold there. Now, the real big thing this episode is the sort of showdown between between the Doctor and the cyber controller who's trying to take over the Doctor's body. I've been reading online that the cyber controller is being referred to as Mr. Clever. I think he calls himself that at one point during the story, and I assume this is probably how he was referred to in the actual script. And this is really one of those cases where you can tell that Neil Gaiman just sat down and said, okay, I'm going to wind this script up and just let Matt Smith go to town. And oh my God, does Matt Smith go to town. I mean, we have seen some pretty hammy performances on New Who, and hammy performances were not exactly unknown in the original Doctor Who. But, oh man, I gotta say that this is a pig's farm worth of ham. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Just seeing Matt Smith just absolutely going crazy with that script, it was just a sight to behold. I was smiling the whole time through. I loved every single minute of that. I mean, yeah, it was all kinds of hammy, but oh man, if you're gonna go over the top, and man does Matt Smith deliver. I mean, it was just non-stop fun watching him go to town. I really don't think I can add too much more to that without the risk of just endlessly repeating myself. But man, bravo to Matt Smith and to Neil Gaiman. Give the man the ball and let him run with it. So with that said, of course we get to see the Doctor being ridiculously clever and outwitting the bad guys and blah 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 blah. I do have to call pretty much BS on the whole porridge is the Emperor thing. Now, I kind of got the impression that, yes, of course, we're going to find out that some way or another it was Porridge who had been the one to push the button. But I thought that was more like he was going to be like the guy who turns the keys in the missile silo. or that he'd been, you know, an officer of some sort in the military. Him being the Emperor is like, well, yeah, I kind of felt like, well, that's BS right there. But okay, it's pretty much the end of the episode. Whatever, I'm just gonna roll with this. And after all that, you know, what I had to say about Matt Smith, I really kind of hate to go back to something even more negative, but I have to point this out. Okay, so the Doctor is obviously reasonably freaked out by seeing the Cybermen at the very beginning, and even though he has pretty good reason to think they're probably harmless, you know, he's obviously not in the mood to take chances. If the Doctor is not in the mood to take chances, why in the world does he leave just Artie and Angie in this room that at best has a locked door? I mean, you really think a locked door is going to keep out a bunch of Cybermen? Why doesn't he just take the kids and put them to bed in the TARDIS? The assembled hordes of Genghis Khan can't get through that door, and believe me, they've tried. Anybody remember that? Oh, speaking of which, did you notice how he did that? You know, Matt Smith did that Ninth Doctor's fantastic, and 10th Doctor's allez. Is that how you said it? Okay, anyway. But yeah, so no. The Doctor has probably one of the most secure places in the universe, literally just a short walk away, and he doesn't put the kids there. And I mean, if he was worried about the kids leaving there and roaming around the TARDIS, freaking lock them in. I mean, sure, they'll be mad, but which is more of something the Doctor should be more concerned about? Making a couple of adolescents mad, or, you know, making sure that they don't get put in danger of being turned into Cybermen. Now, again, you didn't know for sure that there were Cybermen. He just had a suspicion that things could go badly, and they always tend to go badly when there's the possibility of Cybermen around. I mean, they even said, you know, it only takes that one little ship full of Cybermen to possibly assimilate the Earth, even if all they have to work with at the very beginning is a department store. So, again, or, you know, really, why not just hustle the kids in there, kick them out, say, okay, we'll be back for you in 2 minutes. He's got a freaking time machine. He can go back there, deal with that, and bring them back once he's absolutely 100% sure it's safe. Of course, the Doctor's got a time machine, so why doesn't he just, you know, go steal those pictures and, you know, tell the kids to go F themselves for trying to blackmail Clara like that? But oh wait, that would be a reasonable and sensible thing to do. And okay, whatever. All right, so looking over. Oh yeah, I do have to say the shots of the Cybermen, you know, the Cybermen army and the Cybermen in their tombs, obviously influenced by the classic Doctor Who episode from the second Doctor's era, the Tomb of the Cybermen. Really well done. I love those shots. Nicely done. But anyway, folks, that's really about all I had to say about this episode. It's got some really strong stuff in it, but it's also seriously weighed down by some rather weak plot points, and just there was no real good reason for these two kids to be in this episode. It's just dumb and ridiculous, and really they shouldn't have done that. But still, awesome nods to the longtime Doctor Who fans. Absolutely incredible performance by Matt Smith, and certainly a nice little dig at Clara there. You're too short and bossy, and that was great. I loved that. So still, overall, a reasonably decent episode, but one that definitely could have been better. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for you this time. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe, and of course you can follow me on Twitter at Who's Your Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.